Hey, this is Don once again, dual CCIE and owner and principal of Padlock Technologies, here with another quick technology blurb about rapid threat containment. Now, this is very specific to the Cisco world, right? So let's go with the rapid threat containment. So, what is rapid threat containment or RTC? This is basically an automated way to contain a threat rapidly. See what I did there? Um, Something, and this is where Cisco kind of beats the other vendors, is the integration. So with rapid threat containment, you can pretty much, if an action happened, take an action. If it's something detected, take an action automatically without you really being involved in it. And you just now, it's not always automatic. There are some components that, hey, if you're looking at the dashboard, then you can do the rapid threat containment, right? If you're not looking at the dashboard, you can't do it. With the FTD, you can based on certain things. Now, we're going to briefly discuss this. So I'm going to just do ICE, right? We're going to have ICE right here. And then we're going to have an FTD. We're going to have Stealth Watch, or secure network analytics is what they call it now, but it's technically Stealth Watch. And then we're going to have uh, Cisco secure endpoints. So Cisco secure endpoints. So what this basically is you're going to integrate all of these. So ICE is basically your brain of your security arc. This is the brain, right? The brain of the security architecture. This knows about who, what, when, where, how of the network. So that's going to be your center of truth. And then it's going to share that contextual information with the FTD and Stealth Watch via PX Grid integration. And this is going to be PX Grid integration, but this is also going to be AD too. All right, you're going to integrate AD on both of these. Well, AD integration is going to be on the FTD and Stealth Watch, and then PX Grid is going to be how it gets that contextual information from ICE, right? So if someone signs in, let's say we have a NAD right here, user logs in, it's going to send that session data to ICE, and then ICE is going to share that session data to these things, right? That is the PX Grid integration for FTDs and Stealth Watch. And this technically is called TC-NAC, all right? Threat-centric NAC, when you add the secure endpoint functionality into it. And that's going to create a whole new dashboard in ICE that allows you to do things like rapid threat containment. So we're going to talk about, say, Cisco, you have Cisco secure endpoints cloud version, not private cloud. Now you only need private cloud if you're like government and you have like air gap policy. You have to put Cisco secure endpoint private cloud in your environment. That is the only thing that has access to the internet, so it can get updates, and then everybody connects to your on-prem private cloud. But we're not talking about private cloud here. This is going to be the cloud version of Cisco secure endpoints. So what happens is you would download the installer from Cisco Secure Endpoints, and then you would do threat-centric NAC integration or third-party integration from the cloud into ICE. And this is going to be API. Now, the reason I didn't say PX Grid, because this is an API integration. And then all the data, the contextual data that comes from the agent, this comes from the agent, it goes to Cisco Secure Cloud, and then that information gets pumped into ICE for anything that's, incident of compromise, malware, stuff like that, right? So what happens from the ICE perspective is you have these things in there called ANC policies, adaptive network control policies. Now, if you're an ICE 2 person, this used to be called EPS, Endpoint Protection Services, which was like super old school, right? But ANC's adaptive network controls are certain policies, are certain tags, and then you would create a rule saying if you receive this tag, you get this authorization or do something with it, right? These tag values, these ANC values, would actually, through PX Grid integration, get sent to the FTD and Stealth Watch. So now you can create policy here to say, hey, let's say the FTD saw an incidence of compromise, and you had this is going to be a PX grid mitigation or a remediation instance and a correlation rule, right? That's how the FTD does it. So it will say, here's my remediation instance. We'll have all the A and C policies, and this is my correlation rule, right? And the correlation rule will say, if X happens, send A and C policy to ICE for that session or for that event. And then that A and C policy, if that event ever happens, that tag, the A and C policy, gets sent to ICE. ICE looks up that session, does this thing called a COA to the session. But the key to the COA is the COA will now have that A and C tag on it. And if you have a local exception policy that says, hey, if anything has this, tag on it, this A and C tag, like quarantine or something like that, do this. Send it to a remediation VLAN. Send it to, instantly block it off the network. Do something. That's the rapid threat containment in the FTD. It's automatic, which is the way you configure it that makes it automatic, because it's based on certain events. Now, you got to be able to see these events, and that event is going to come off this integration with Secure Act. The one I just mentioned is you're going to have to integrate Secure Cloud into the FTD as well. You're going to have to secure endpoints. You're going to have to integrate it with the FTD to see, hey, I couldn't quarantine a certain thing. Okay, I couldn't quarantine a piece of malware. FTD sends that to ICE. ICE does the rapid threat containment. If you're not using an FTD, and let's say you do, Cisco secure endpoints, what's going to happen? Now, there's more than just Cisco secure endpoints. You can integrate it with like net expose and do vulnerability scanning and all that good stuff. But once you start doing vulnerability scanning, you could potentially crush your network if you're doing a vulnerability scan before anybody can get on the network, because you can have thousands of sessions at one time, which could crush your network. So let's say you're just using secure endpoints. Well, what happens there is you will look in the ICE dashboard, your threat-centric dashboard, and you will see like incident of compromise, vulnerabilities, something that shows you an issue. And then you would have to click on the session and apply the A and C policy to that session. And then rapid threat containment happens. Whatever COA gets pushed, A and C policy gets attached to that session, and then you have a rule that says do something with that because of that A and C. Now, this is an advanced technique. Unless your ICE infrastructure is rocking and rolling, I don't suggest you just slam this in here. From a stealth watch perspective, and stealth watch is really for detections, right? This is how you detect things early. Now, I always say there's a before it happens, while it happens, after it happens. And that falls into detection, prevention, recovery. From a detection standpoint, what stealth watch can do is if you see something like an exfiltration attack, case in point, why is Susie's machine downloading gigs of data from the data center for some odd reason? You see that, you go into stealth watch, it shows you that alarm, you pull up that session and you apply the A and C policy there to that session for Susie, and then the same thing happens. COA that gets sent to ICE. ICE pushes the COA to that session, does something, whatever you want it to. It kicks them off the network. It stops all access. It does something, right? It's really based on what the authorization profile dictates once the tag is being set. And that, you always do this as a local exception, because local exceptions get processed first before your regular authorization rules. So again, this is a super advanced technique. This is not something that you implement from day one. And I want to say that and I want to emphasize that, because people will see this and say, oh, we're going to implement rapid threat containment, but your wired and wireless implementation's not even up and running 100% like it should get. You're still using MS Chat v2 instead of moving to certs. You still don't have TrustSec involved. Now, TrustSec, you don't need TrustSec to do rapid threat containment, but if you're going to do some advanced features, there's some things that you need to look at that you probably can do before you do rapid threat containment. Like you need to have those conversations before you start implementing some advanced techniques like this. But if you're ready to do something like this and you need some help, definitely I'm going to put a link in the description here, and it's for a discovery call, and this is to see where your environment is and how we can actually implement rapid threat containment in the environment. It's not a sales call, because you may not be able to, your environment might not be ready for rapid threat containment. It might be a nice to have, but if you're not ready, you're just not ready. So I'm going to put that link in the description for a discovery call. Click it, schedule a call. Let's see where you're at, see where we can take you, or if we can even help you. Other than that, hope this video was very informative. This is very cool technique. This is like the nerd techniques that we all would love to implement, but you may not need it. But I hope this was informative. Thank you, and have a nice day.